supporting an executive is supporting a human. So there is no distinction between a personal assistant and an executive assistant if you get it right. And that person is there to help manage your tasks and ensure that you've got your daily briefs and are checking the boxes of your quarterly goals and taking notes and all of that. But to really stand beside you as your protector of your energy and to care so much about you as a human.
I'm so excited.
I'm so excited.
I've listened to a lot of these podcasts.
I know you have it. Here you are on the Spiritual Hustler podcast.
Yeah.
Welcome to my show, my incredible partner, friend, soul, mother, healer, activator, safest space I've ever had, Stephanie Hand. Welcome to the Spiritual Hustler podcast.
Thank you, Jessica.
So I ask every guest my starting question before we dive into your story and our story. What are you currently spiritually hustling for, Steph?
Because I knew this question was coming, I've thought a little bit about it. There's so much right now that I'm like trying to get right in the big transition time for me, us, for my family. So I'm really just trying to stay, grounded and like letting things happen rather than trying to manage everything, because that's so much more my nature.
Yeah. You and so many women.
Yeah. And, it's my job too.
Yeah.
So, and that bleeds into my life. And one moment I'm so excited, and one moment I'm like, what the hell am I doing?
Well, what you're about to go do is needed in the world, and you're in a feminine vibration. You're allowing, you're trusting, you're receiving, you're not controlling. You are stepping into a whole new timeline. And before we talk about that new timeline, I want to go back and talk about your past timeline leading up to our timelines intersecting. Yeah. So you have been in an executive administration for how many years now?
Well, over 40.
40. And tell us about the companies you worked for before you got to me.
I like to think that my real journey helping CEOs happened about 25 years ago. I'd come out of working in Sam Zell organizations at Equity Group and the Zell Mark Fund for about 17 years.
Wow.
In various stages of those businesses.
And to be clear for my audience, Sam Zell it's a multi-billion-dollar company multiple companies that he ran.
He was famous in Chicago.
The richest man in Illinois.
Yeah. For a long time.
Yeah.
It was a very demanding organization. And, the stakes were high. They invested a lot of money. They made a lot of money. And there were really high expectations on you. And I worked at the highest levels of that organization with some of his top leaders and the analysts making the investments for, their private investors in a $2 billion fund.
Yeah.
They were going through a transition, and my role was seen not so much as an executive assistant. It had morphed into more of a research support role. And for about 3 years, I basically told them what I did for them. And then 1 year, they decided that I was done, which opened the most beautiful thing that ever happened. It was like, again, scary because I had been with them for so long, and I really didn't know what to do next or how to do. And, one Sunday morning I was reading the Chicago Tribune want ads, and there was long before, Indeed or LinkedIn. And there was a ad looking for an office manager research assistant for a startup hedge fund, and I put my resume out, and 2 months later,
Wow.
I was working with these guys. I was the fifth hire, 4 guys in a West Loop loft. They thought they hired me to, help with research, but they just needed everything. And so it really was more an office manager and becoming the administrative executive assistant to the founding partners. And, I was there 10 years. I think year 7 is the year we hired 2 other women, another assistant and HR compliance person. And we also hired CFO and COO those years. I mean, I went through a SEC audit
Yeah.
before we had those people.
Yeah.
Wow. So I did, everything for those guys and the company. It was just the greatest opportunity.
Because the
They
company went public, didn't it?
well, they were bought by Morgan Stanley.
After starting at 4 guys in
4
the
guys
West Loop
in
office.
yeah.
You saw it all.
We saw it out. So we got bought by Morgan Stanley. We did a 2-year lockup after that purchase. And then he knew he didn't want to be part of a big organization. As soon as the lockup was over, we spun out. And then the financial crisis happened. We made it through that. But then just as we were investors coming back in, one of the portfolio managers on the platform was indicted for insider trading. And so all the money started going out. And we had a significant portion of money in a mutual, commingled managed fund that was shared across all the platforms. And that started going away. And that ended. Tim Flannery, the managing partner at the time, asked me to stay on and help kind of unwind what we wound up together. And so I did that for, 2 or 3 months. And then I needed to find what was next. And that was really when it was a huge change. Got out of Chicago, a new CEO, first-time CEO in a manufacturing company in Harvey, Illinois, which turns out to be almost Indiana, 35 miles away from me, and you can't take a train there. I met John Williamson, and there was just something about him that I could see what he was trying to do, and I knew that I could help him.
And you did.
And so I asked him if he wanted to work with me, and he did. So they went public.
Yeah.
We went public in year 4.
Wow.
Yeah, and then the CEO and CFO retired.
Good for them.
Yeah. And then I was asked to stay on to help transition the new CEO, Bill Waltz, who I had known. He was in the business for like 5 years. And but he wanted help, especially with the board. And I was instrumental in bringing on 8 independent board members and had really strong relationships with them. And it was an excellent place. And but our relationship was so different than John's or what I had with Tim. He didn't want the same things. He didn't need it. He didn't value it.
Yeah.
And I was very unsettled, and I knew that I wanted to do something else. And John was encouraging me to explore going out on my own. So then COVID happened, and it became kind of the perfect opportunity.
Yeah.
To try and do that. So I got organized around, how do you start a company? How do you form an LLC? How do you, what's the tax structure? And so I learned all of that and had some advisors. And in March of 2021, so
You launched
I
On Hand
launched On
Executives.
Hand Executive Services. And got my first client that year, a couple of co-founders of a DeFi crypto company. They were my first clients, and they were great. And from there, I just started adding clients. And about, 14 months into it, somebody's like, you have to meet Jessica. And I was like, okay. I think I was getting into my car and I did a quick Google search. And I was like, wow, within 2 minutes, I was like, I knew I wanted to meet you. And I think that was a Wednesday, and we were going to talk on Friday. And I read your books
in 2 days.
In 2 days, and listened to a lot of podcasts, and just tried to learn everything I could about you. And then our 20-minute conversation on Friday was almost 2 hours,
20 minutes. Yeah, a really long conversation.
And then I got off the phone and couldn't shut up to my husband. Like, I was like so excited to have met a woman,
right,
who was in this position that you were in, and so open to having the kind of relationship that I was used to having with my leaders. And I couldn't wait. I mean, I just couldn't wait.
Well, and here we are 3 years later.
Yes.
I'm so glad you were able to break that timeline down, because your acumen and the level of sophistication, just in hearing the companies you took public and Sam Zell, and all very masculine, hyper corporate, hyper finance focus, but at a real high level working as an EA. You come into my life as somebody that, yes, needed support, but my traditional EAs had been, up until I met you, young people right out of college that were looking at the EA role within my organization as a stepping stone. Mm-hmm. So you had never worked for a woman before. I had never had someone at your level before. And I want you to talk about and fully lay it out, not that my audience is going to be surprised, what it looked like. Yes, I was ready for you. I needed you, but I also kind of wasn't really ready for you. I think that's important to share what the business, what my calendar, what my life looked like, and how you helped me fix it.
Well, I think just by meeting each other in our initial conversations, you became so aware that there was so much more available to you than what you have had experienced. And if we hadn't met, you might have hired another young, aggressive, looking for their next career step as this a launching pad. And, if you can work with Jessica, you can work with anybody.
I don't know about that. But.
So you really brought me in, told me what was going on in the business.
Yeah. I was actually about to reorg my entire company, and I had to fire 3 people 2 weeks after you had started.
Right.
Which was horrible.
So that's what I learned. Over lunch, I think we were having a working lunch, and the morning was talking about how you were going to revamp your product suite and pricing. And that was very exciting. And then over lunch, the reorg conversation started. And I think after listening and absorbing what you guys were all talking about, you turned to me and said, are you ready to leave or something like that?
I was like, are you sure you could handle this tornado?
And I basically, it was like, now I know why I'm here.
Right.
Because I've been through this. She needed help to come through this, that every real leader at some point in their business has to make tough decisions and right size.
Yeah.
And having people close to you who can support that, who you can lean into or lean on. I knew what that was going to look like for you.
Yeah.
I think, wasn't it week 2 or 3 we were traveling?
Yeah.
And I thought I was still onboarding, but
I threw you right in. It was no time to waste.
It was throwing in. So, really quickly getting just how vast, how diverse your involvement with everything was. It was the agency and clients. It was your team. And I was like amazed that it's just not one-on-ones.
I was in
Why are
every
you in
single
every meeting? But I wasn't saying that yet. That's kind of where I was going with it in my head. And I think we both, like, I got to a point, it was about 6 weeks in, where I was really spending like almost all day crying.
Right.
Because I was so worried about you and being able to support you. And I had to tell you that I couldn't do the thing that I told you I could do. Like, I'm this expert. I could do this. And I just felt like I was letting you down. But what I really was trying to say, and I did say, was that your schedule is not sustainable.
Yeah.
And
I'm like getting emotional thinking about those
I
times.
know. I mean, I was ugly crying in that meeting.
Yeah.
It was terrible.
I was ugly crying to myself before work and after work.
Yeah.
All the time because I was so in the weeds.
Right.
And burnt out.
And I could see it and I could feel it. And the weight of it was just, it was a lot. And I really didn't want to let you down. And I saw how important this was, how many people depended on everything. So telling you this was, I thought, so hard. And how you received it wasn't, you said, you aren't going to leave me, are you?
I remember that.
And I was like, I don't want to. But we can't do this.
Right.
And, we basically changed. Even before you went to Egypt, we were talking about how this was going to change, but then Egypt happened.
Yeah.
And the miracle of Egypt in everything about what it did to you for your spiritual being, what it did for how you came to realize how you wanted to live.
Yes.
And work. And I was like, we're going to be okay.
Yeah.
Because I felt like embarked on it together. It wasn't like, I'm going to have to fix this for you or you're going to.
Yeah.
We
became
a team.
Yeah. So our relationship had a rocky start, admittedly. And yet here we are 3 years later. And I have never experienced support the way I experienced it with you. And I really am so here to say to my community the importance of a sophisticated level of executive administration in your business and to really, really value it as your biggest asset. Because once you came in, yes, I went to Egypt and came back and integrated that trip, but my whole life healed. And a lot of that was because I did my own work, but a lot of it was because I allowed you to support me versus just being the delegator.
Mm-hmm.
And we became partners. And so if you were to really share with my audience over the last 3 years, some of the biggest lessons that they can take into their business around how to really make a CEO to EA relationship hum, what would those lessons and pieces of advice be?
Well, I think the main thing is make sure that you have someone that you want to have around you.
Yes.
That feels comfortable, that you feel trusted, like you can trust them, like you can be real with them.
They're going to be in your life more than anybody else.
They're going to
know.
Part.
You know when I'm bleeding. You know when I'm fighting with Brian. You know when I'm hungry.
Yeah.
You know where I am at all times.
Right, but it's also that you know
that it's safe.
That it's safe.
Yeah.
And that's just not with anybody.
Correct.
And that comes from you may have somebody in your life already that is doing that for you, but you need them to step up.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of ways that can happen, but it's really key that you are working with somebody that you want to be there for you. And then I think that other part is that you as a CEO, have stepped out of the entrepreneur place, the mindset of that you are ready to lead.
Yeah.
You are ready to be the business.
Yeah.
And I think that was the biggest part of your transformation that I saw that next year, was that you really trusted that you could
Step away. Yeah.
And I saw you struggle with that. Can I not have meetings after 3:00?
Do I deserve that?
Can I really not schedule meetings until 10?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Can I really fully remove myself from meetings completely that I actually don't need to be in anymore?
right. So, and watching that happen was really an unlock. I don't know if there's a third that, I think is really key, but I think those two things are where you have to start. You really have to have somebody that you have that trust in, and you need to be ready to let that stuff go.
So when people think of assistants, they think of, oh, she handles my schedule, she gets me my coffee and makes sure I'm fed, manages my travel. There are some pitfalls in thinking that it just looks like that. You've been working with a lot of executives, myself as probably, this activation of working with women really deeply. And you support so many of my women that I coach and are my clients. And so many of them I see really struggle accepting support. So what are some common mistakes that women especially are making when it comes to that EA relationship?
I think they think that they have to tell you what to do. It comes down to that you believe that this person is your partner.
Yes.
Not, and I don't want to use the word just an assistant.
Right.
And I'm only using it just in a very limiting of capacity, not in their abilities, because you are the one that's limiting them.
Correct.
If it's the right person and they have the right skill set and they have the right mindset, you are the one that's limiting them because you're not letting them in. The biggest unlock to that is sharing your vision, helping them understand the context for why we're doing this, why this launch is important, what this is going to accomplish for us. Why am I doing this course? Why, how comes later.
Yeah.
But all of that helps the person in the role supporting you know how to prioritize without you, and sometimes in spite of you saying how you want to prioritize your time.
Speaking of that, you talk about this philosophy of being 10 steps ahead of you while right behind you.
Mm-hmm.
So what does this actually look like in action, and why can it be such a game changer for women in business?
Well, it can be the little things every day. I go to bed the night before thinking about tomorrow.
Yeah.
And what does that look like for you, right? So that's me planning ahead. That's like, have I looked at the weather? Are you traveling?
Yeah.
Usually I'm with you, but
Yeah.
if I'm not with you, like you and Brian were on vacation or your family was on vacation, and there was a lot of parts that other people were planning because it was a family thing.
Yeah.
And that was for me like not great.
Yep.
Because it's hard for me to stay ahead of you. So in that case, I'm behind you because I might have to pick up something. And even though I'm expecting that you're on vacation or it was over the weekend, and I'm still expecting that you might need something. So that's a behind you kind of thing. The big things, I can go back to, on the book tour.
Yeah.
Some of the things that I was anticipating for you.
Always.
Or that like you didn't even know.
I didn't.
Like things that I needed to make happen.
Yep.
So that you could show up at the end of the day to do the fireside chat, to meet all these women who came to talk about your book. And there I'm with my hand on your back, right? Because now you're here, all this stuff is ready. But what do you need while you're here, you know?
Yes.
Like, is everybody where they needed to be? Did Michael Beckwith show up?
On time. Yes.
You know? And so it's all the same thing, really.
Yes.
It doesn't have to be two different things. To me, it's the same.
Can I ask you your thoughts? So what's coming up for me as you're talking, because I'm thinking about all the ways that you support me.
Yeah.
Like when we would go on those across the country for my book tour and I would do these events and I would stay back at the hotel, get my makeup done, get my outfit on while you were like setting up the space, getting the flowers, making sure the caterer was on time, unlocking the door, ensuring the music was right. Like, so I could just show up, right? Mm-hmm. A year ago, almost exactly, you helped me move. Mm-hmm. We went from Chicago to Nashville. You helped pack up my house, unpack my house, organize my drawers. You helped me with all the little micro things on my schedule. Like in my calendar, there are links to the Zooms, to the documents well in advance. So by the time I show up on the meeting, I have everything I need. I'm just listing out all of these things because there was a period of my life, Steph, where I felt that if I were to step into that, I would be a diva. Like I had fear around accepting that level of support and thinking that I deserved it, that I deserved to be that deeply supported. And I think that's a block for so many of us. Mm-hmm. I've obviously alchemized it. Mm-hmm. To be honest, sometimes I have to surprise myself. I'm like, oh my God, really? You'll do that for me? And you're like, yes, I'll do that for you.
That was kind of the move.
Yes, it was the move because I was blown away that you would help me do that. You help me pack when I'm traveling. You help me unpack when I get there. These are these little things that I treasure them, right? I don't take them for granted. I value everything. What advice do you have to the women that are listening, who are like listening to this and being like, I could never afford that. I don't deserve that. I don't think I could ever ask someone to do those things for me. Can you speak to her? Because I know that they're listening and some of my listeners might be like, wow, that's so aspirational, but not attainable. And I don't deserve it. What do you have to say to her?
Stop it. Stop that right now. First of all, if you expected it and you didn't appreciate it and you weren't grateful, yeah, you'd be a diva.
Right, of course.
You'd be, I wouldn't want to do that for you.
Of course.
Right? It's part of...
It's a relationship.
It's a part of the relationship. I'm seeing that if you don't have to do that, that frees you to do the things that make the business possible or help the clients possible. So when I would counsel a woman, any other female executive, you don't have to be a CEO. You just have to believe that what you are doing is important and worthy enough that you can be supported, however you need to be supported. And I would remind you that for the 25 years that I worked with men, they don't think twice about that. They don't think twice.
They sure don't.
About how that gets done.
Right.
It just needs to get done.
Or do I deserve somebody to
No, they don't think
my
about
travel and pack for me? They don't think that way.
They don't think that way.
Right.
I mean, I never packed for John, but
but
I traveled with him. But
it's around worth.
Right.
It's exactly what I wholeheartedly believe is the core of all women stepping into their true power, whether it's through an assistant, whether it's through revenue, whether it's just stepping into a book launch or a podcast tour or being seen on social media. Same thing goes with an assistant fully supporting you. It really comes down to your belief in yourself, in your vision, in your work, in your magic, in your codes, that you are here for a deep, deep mission. We all are. And you can't do that alone. You need to be in your highest vibration. You need to be protected. And the right EA sees and knows that. Mm-hmm. What are some of the biggest warning signs you would say to a woman that's currently running her business that she is desperately in need of an EA?
She finds herself in every single meeting. She's stuck in her inbox. Mm. Her calendar is back to back, and maybe she doesn't even know why meetings are on her calendar. I've run into this because they'd get scheduled rather than requested or planned. You know, I could go off on that, but it those are warning signs.
Yeah.
Those are
And as a result of that, she's probably really freaking tired.
She's probably really tired. And, you know, if her business is one part of her life and maybe she's got a family, oh my God, you know,
Right.
then all of a sudden, you know, I feel for her. That stuff breaks my heart because it's so, we can fix that.
Yeah.
Really, we can fix that. And that'll help you so much. And it doesn't take a lot.
It doesn't take a lot. It takes tweaking, boundaries, protection, optimization. Yes. But I think it really takes, I'm speaking to her right now, it takes a level of surrender for you to say, this is something I can't do by myself anymore. And I need somebody to take care of this with me. And that is a bit of a, not an ego bruise, but there's something about the power we hold to hold it together as successful women that we get really caught up in and stuck on because we don't want to ever let anyone else down. But in trying to do that, we're letting ourselves down.
Or your business, or your clients,
your business.
Or your team.
Correct.
Extend it onto your family.
Yeah. You are so clearly passionate about helping visionary women thrive. Yeah. And this has inspired, I mean, I'll share this in the intro because they're going to know this, but you're leaving me. You're not leaving
I'm not
me.
leaving.
You're spreading your wings.
The work is changing.
Correct. We're going through an evolution. You are moving. The business over on this part has evolved and it's time. And never before in my entire career, I just want to say this with full pride. I've had a lot of people come through my business. I probably have had, between the employees I once had and all the attrition and the businesses I've built, 60 people I've hired over the course of my career. And I've gotten really beautiful, I think, at being that kind of leader that lets people go when they need to go with a lot of love and support and grace. And at times it hasn't been so pretty. There's never been in my career transition like ours, where we're really holding the highest vision for each other's next timeline and remaining partners in that way.
Yeah.
And your transition is not you going to be an EA for someone else.
No.
Why don't you share with us what you're about to launch or what you're currently launching? Look at how you just lit up.
I know. I am. I'm very excited about it. So my next iteration of On Hand is going to be coaching and consulting women CEOs or high-level leaders and their assistants to build the relationship that I've loved.
Yeah. And there's a gap in the market because no one's doing this. Leaders, when they hire the EA, it's so much more than hiring the right EA. And when the EA gets the dream job for the CEO, it's so much more than just the role they think they've signed up to do. Mm-hmm. And so can you talk to us about how you support that dynamic?
Yeah, I guess. Well, that's kind of evolving yet too in the concrete way. But, I really see it as, it could be from, helping you design the role to create what you need so that when you do, the job description, which I think is more a little bit of a story about who and why you are looking for this person and helping them see that they get your vision and get who you are and see themselves working for you and therefore want to reach out to be with you. Not so much, I'm looking for an EA. If you know anybody, it's not really that. So trying to help people design and think about who that person is. Who do you want to be with you, to be your partner? And if you already have that person, beautiful. You're there, you're comfortable. Trust and is the biggest foundation, and that you care to work with each other is, I think, the other key. And then I would just love to have the opportunity to help you become that CEO and help your assistant integrate into your business, into your life, into your life,
Yes.
to be that partner strategically on just not on the tactics, not on the day to day. You can hire that person. That's pretty easy to do, but the person that's going to be that partner to you that really takes you to the next level. I'm designing that. I'm talking to people about that. It's really exciting. And, we already collaborated and told our story a little bit on LinkedIn, and, people reached out.
That
It
blew
was
up, that post.
like,
We'll
I
link
want
it in
that.
the show notes.
Yeah.
People should read that.
And it's like, I want that relationship. Talk to me about that relationship.
Yes.
So it's really beautiful. And I just, so many people know me for the doing of the EA work. And I think that this iteration of the work that I could do could help even more than what I've done so far. And I think I've done some pretty amazing things.
Yeah, you have done some amazing fucking things. You launched a best-selling book. You took a company public. You helped me sell my business. You've been in so many different spectrums of industry: masculine, corporate, feminine, startup, thought leader, authors, social media, community building, and really have seen, especially in my business, the exquisite nature of what it feels like to be your business. Mm-hmm. And I agree wholeheartedly that it's so much more than the tactics. It's really understanding the power of the strategic relationship. Mm-hmm. And one thing that you have done so beautifully, which has been a learning lesson for me, is showing me that it's, supporting an executive is supporting a human. So there is no distinction between a personal assistant and an executive assistant if you get it right. Mm-hmm. And that person is there to help manage your tasks and ensure that you've got your daily briefs and are checking the boxes of your quarterly goals and taking notes and all of that. Mm-hmm. But to really stand beside you as your protector, mm-hmm. of your energy, mm-hmm. and to care so much about you as a human being. Mm-hmm. Because I think that those things are to some degree teachable, of how to show up more optimized on both sides of that role to create a true unified synergy that is pretty, once you get it right, it makes both of you unstoppable. I mean, I don't think I would be where I am. I don't think I know had you not come into my life when I needed you the most. And you healed me. You helped to heal me, which healed my business. And I want to thank you publicly in front of my whole community for doing that. There you go. Steph, do you, have anything to potentially say before I get into my final quick fire questions to the women who are listening to the show who have a passion to be the support versus the CEO, the operational side of a business? Not everyone who listens is aiming to be the face, but people who really thrive in support roles, because you're going to be coaching those women as well. So what do you have to say to her? Because she's you. 20 years ago.
Yeah. Well, I believe I think the EA community is very strong, and we share kind of passions for the work that we do, and we sort of get each other. I mean, I think that assistants have it in their DNA somehow that this work is really, it's in our DNA. We love this work. We love being that person. And to my community of other executive assistants, I just really want to encourage you to always believe that you are worthy of working with someone who values you, who values your contribution. And I know there's a lot of situations and people get stuck in places where they're not valued or respected. And I just want you to know that it's possible to really find those relationships, but it's kind of on you to not accept things that don't fill you up, that don't reward you, that don't make it worth all that you're giving to somebody else. And really just own that for yourselves too, and believe that if you put it out there, that this is what you want, this is who you want to work for, the type of businesses and the people, and just stand in it.
The EA is the secret weapon of the business.
They are.
It is.
They are.
And to really hold that and value that. I love that stuff. Okay, can I ask you my quick fire questions? Let's see what you got to say. You know what I'm going to ask you.
I know.
Do you have a favorite spiritual book?
Yes. It's called The Light Work by Jessica Zweig.
I kind of knew you were going to say that.
It's pretty good.
It's pretty good.
I'm reading lots of them, though.
I know you are.
I think you have mine right now, the Women Who Run with the Wolves.
Yeah, it's so good.
And Cosmic Mother. Yeah, I mean, I learned a lot from you, too, and the community of women that we're working with. I'm loving this expansion into things that, have been quiet in the back of my mind or my soul. And, I can't think of how many times in my life I've gone, did that happen? Did I feel that? Did I know that?
I often say working with me is like, welcome to the light side.
I know.
Like, not welcome to the dark side, welcome to the light side. It opens up.
It opens up. So, yeah. And I mean, almost any time you speak to somebody or they mention their book or something, I'm like, I got that. I'm getting that, because I just continue to want to learn. But your book, I'm so proud of you in that book. I just love it.
Do you have a certain angel or goddess or deity or ancestor that you connect with the most?
Ancestors, my grandmas. My grandma, both of my grandmas were really strong, supportive of me, worked. I saw that a woman could work and be respected in her work. So they're very present always.
Do you believe in extraterrestrials? Yes or no? I don't think I've ever asked you this.
You've never asked me this. I have more of a Neil deGrasse Tyson,
I love him.
Look at like the cosmos and that how vast and incredibly, just incredibly vast it is. It's difficult to really truly believe that we're alone. Yeah. And I love the sky. I love looking at the stars and understanding the constellations. And I have an app on my phone, you know.
So do
So
I.
I'm just like, you know, I'm open to it.
That's all. That's all I need.
Yeah. I mean, I know where you stand, but
Everybody does.
and that's okay.
Question.
And that's okay.
It's
I know.
whether you believe it or not. It's just a curious one. My quick fire, just curious.
Yeah.
Because I think everybody is somewhat curious. Final question. What does it mean to you, Stephanie, to be a co-creator of the new earth?
My truth.
Fuck yeah. I love you so much. I'm so grateful that you came into my life. Not even, words don't even cut it, let alone coming on my podcast so that I can amplify our work as hopefully a deep permission slip for women to step into their worthiness, and to watch you go fly and support so many other female entrepreneurs that need you and this work and this partnership desperately. And as I often say, the sky is the beginning, and this is the beginning for both of us, a new beginning.